Probably like many of us here, I have been to the dark moments of my life. I've been to the rock bottom. But you know what? I don't know what saved you, but hugs have saved me. Hugs from those that matter. I believe hugs have saved others too. But sadly, there are many that wish to be hugged. And even worse, some never had a chance to even wish for a hug. With that, if you indulge me, I, Maria, a self-appointed ambassador of life-saving hugs, would like to empower you with this hopeful story about hugs. You know, I don't usually smile in my childhood pictures. My childhood, especially the school life, wasn't a great one. My classmates were mean to me, never get along. They hid my books. They ostracized me. When I tried to be friendly and smile, they called me fat and ugly. It was so lonely, and I didn't have a reason to smile. There are a few things that every kid craves: to be seen, feel special, know that they're loved. But I tried to be invisible, hoping that it will make my life easier. But what I learned was easier doesn't mean happier. The only thing that kept me from sinking into total darkness was my dad. My dad hugged me. He hugged me tightly and often. He sometimes hugged me and lifted me up, and that turned my tears into laughter. I would dry on my tears with his t-shirt, and now, 3 decades later, I can still smell the scent of hay and cows on his t-shirt from his work in nearby farms. During the day, he hugged cows because he was a vet. But at night, he was all mine to hug. He kept hugging me until I calmed down from the trauma of my day. This is not just another sad story about a schoolgirl who was bullied. What I'm trying to tell you here is the power of this unique physical affection that is not common for Japanese kids. For 30 years, I've wondered if hugging might be the missing piece in our culture. When I was 7, on our way back from a musical event at my elementary school, I could tell my mom was so proud of me, but her grip told a different story. Soon after, she broke the news that my friend took his own life. My first thought at the moment, could I have done anything to help him? Reflecting back now, that could have been anyone. That could have been me. I believe hugs from my parents kept me alive. Could hugs have saved him? I don't know, and I will never know. But why wait until it's too late to hug the person you care about? Most of us blame ourselves and wonder if we could have done anything once it's too late. Throughout my life, hugs from my family gave me the will and power to overcome any hardships. Well, I was just an ordinary Japanese girl who was born in Brazil. My dad also was an ordinary Japanese dad. However, in Brazil, where my family lived for a couple of years, at my dad's work, everyone hugged each other all the time. And then he picked up this unusual habit and hugged me every day. When I was 3, we moved back to Japan, and the first thing I asked was, "Daddy, where are the hugs?" I saw parents picking up their kids. They would just smile and take their hands and go. I was like, really? Only a smile? Nothing more? When I turned 20, I moved to Canada with zero English, but determined to learn to speak like a native, as I was disappointed that I sounded like a baby when I spoke English. That was my first time traveling alone. Going to a foreign country on my own for the first time, that was scary. As I arrived at the host family's house in early March, my host mother took me to the basement without windows and said, "Here's your room." It was freezing cold with only one thin blanket on my bed. ちょっと待って待って、嘘でしょ? But I couldn't express it in English. I was shivering from the cold, crying, wearing 5 layers of clothes to survive the first night. Next morning, I encouraged myself, went to my host mother, and said, "My room cold." Then she sighed, came to the basement, and said, "It's not cold at all." I burst into tears, froze for a moment, and the only thing I could say was, "Thank you." Of course, I didn't mean it. I was sobbing alone on my bed, thinking she couldn't care less about me. A few minutes later, her 2-year-old daughter came to me. Maybe she wanted to play, and she saw my eyes dripping with tears. Then she instantly opened her tiny arms and hugged me, smiling. Before this moment, I felt so unwelcome in this house, like a Japanese intruder. But her warm, spontaneous hug touched my heart. And that was all I needed that moment to push through. As a 20 years old, you might think I was old enough to deal with this kind of emotional turmoil, but for my whole life, I had relied on my dad's hugs to overcome such challenges, and he wasn't there. That was 17 years ago. The main motivation leading me on this journey to spread the gospel of hugs is actually what happened 3 years ago. It was a normal day. I got up in the morning as usual, getting ready for work. When I checked my phone, I saw 5 missed calls from my mom, and she never calls me so early. I instantly knew something was wrong. My dad, who was the most ambitious, active, health-conscious person, suddenly passed away. He was telling me how excited he was to go on a birthday trip with Mom, which was supposedly a week after. He didn't have any precondition or disease, but suddenly got sick and was gone overnight. I rushed to my home and saw him lying on the floor with his eyes closed. I tried to hug him, but his body was stiff and cold. Of course, he didn't hug me back. His hugs were always a remedy for my struggles, but this time, when I needed it the most, he couldn't hug me. One of the biggest gifts that I got from my dad was the healing power of hugs. When someone asked, "Are you okay?" I thought, how could I be? Although I know that they all cared about me, but what I truly hoped to get was their sincere, heartfelt hugs. Especially in Japanese culture, we are kind of forced to maintain a strong image and are expected to say we are okay, even when we are not. I'd rather have a hug. And that was everything I needed that moment. Anxiety, self-doubt, loneliness, and depression. These are the things that most of us go through when we are in the dark moments of our lives. And unfortunately, these are the key underlying factors for suicide. On average, 57 people commit suicide every single day in Japan. I've been talking about life-saving hugs, but it's not just my feeling. Researchers across the globe have found that there are indeed measurable health benefits to hugging, such as reducing anxiety, increasing oxytocin, and so on. Now, what is a real hug? It's about pressure, which means it's not an air hug or not a mental hug, but it's a real physical hug. When I told my stories about life-saving hugs to a lady in a local park, she said, "Of course I hug my kids all the time," in my mind. But that's not enough. There is an interesting study from Toho University involving 100 pairs of parents and newborns to see the effect of 20 seconds long physical hugs. They measured the pressure of the hugs with some special gloves and also the heart rate of the kids. As you can imagine, the middle pressure hug had the best calming effect. Not too little, not too much. One survey from Belle Maison in Japan. They found that parents typically stop showing physical affection to their kids when they turn around 7 years old, due to them becoming more shy or busy. One boy from the survey says he envies his parents' smartphones. One scientist called Temper Grandin found that when she put her stressed cows in a small cubicle for inoculation and applied some pressure, the cows calmed down. This led to the invention of the hugging machine for kids with autism, and it actually helps them. Raise your hand if you hug someone every day. 1, 2, 3. Now, people outside of Japan may think, "Oh no, these people are so cold." But that doesn't mean we are, right? Just that hugging as adults has never been part of our culture. When we greet friends, no matter how excited we are, we don't hug. Neither do we when we are sad. Hugs between adults are considered as a private couple thing, but not something that you would do with friends, family, colleagues, or acquaintances in public. I understand that keeping distance shows respect in our culture, but I promise you, a hug from the right person at the right time can make a huge difference in someone's life. In Japan, we've been taught for a long time to be emotionally independent and suffer behind our smiles. We never know, people might be crying underneath. Some people might call this an imported culture. Some people may judge you, but they will judge you anyway. If hugs can make someone's day a better one, I would gladly take the judgment. Thinking about it now, without my dad's hugs, I may not be here on this stage or at all. I wish I could tell that to my dad and hug him but since I can't, I decided to share it with you all. After 3 years of missing my dad so badly, I felt I really need to pass on his greatest legacy. 最後に、ハグのパワーを信じる皆さんにお願いがあります。今、あなたがハグをしたい大切な人、思い浮かべてみてください。その方があなたのハグによって笑顔になっている姿、見えると思います。恥ずかしいなと思う方、いらっしゃるかもしれませんが、私の父も生まれながらにしてハグをしていたわけでもありません。父が自らハグという習慣を取り入れ、私の命を救ってくれました。ハグと愛はカップルだけのものではないのです。津波でお子さんを亡くされたご両親、お子さんへ最後にかけた言葉、早く学校行きなさい、本当に宿題やったの？そんな言葉よりもハグをすればよかったと後悔していると話してくださいました。ハグは言葉にならない気持ちにも気づくことができます。私自身悩みすぎてもうどうにも気持ちを言葉にできないとき、こんな風に友達をいつもよりぎゅーっと長くハグをして助けを求めたことが何度もあります。私は父のこと何度ハグしたか分かりません。でも全然足りません。あなたが大切な人をハグした瞬間、何急にどうしたのって驚かれたら、私のせいにしてもらって構いません。テデックスのマリアからのお願いだからそう伝えてください。そしてそこからハグのパワーについて話してみてください。心を込めたハグで世界が変わります。あなたが大切な人を心からハグした瞬間、その意味が必ず分かります。ありがとうございました。